Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Jared Wise. I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Communications with Your Better Business Bureau. You're attending the Excel training, Worksheets Made Simple, on our BBB Skill Builders series. Now, this is a recorded version. We did a live one earlier as well, but just letting you know that we are doing a recorded version as well. That's what you're watching right now. This is the second in our series. We did one last month on organizing your online calendar. That is also available on YouTube along with this version as well. But we did a poll a little earlier during our live version on Excel training to kind of gauge the attendees and how skilled they were when it comes to Excel. And it looks like from going from an expert to don't use it at all, don't really want to use it, most individuals were in the beginner to intermediate range, with a few people that haven't used it but really want to learn a little bit. So Sean Bugler, who is our fantastic trainer for today with Learn It, he is going to be walking through a great presentation on some of the Excel sheets and give some good, simple, quick tips that you can learn for making your worksheets a little simpler to use. And I got some good tips earlier during the live version, so Sean, thank you very much. And Sean is a technical trainer with Learn It. He spends most of his time working with organizations to develop more effective data analysts, executive assistants, and pretty much everyone in between. And when he's not teaching, you can find him tinkering with his smart home over a good cup of coffee. So, John, so I know the smart home nowadays. I mean, you can do a lot of things with just a simple click. So it's nice that you need a coffee with a good little click too.
That's step two.
Well, Sean, thank you so much for joining us today and for doing this presentation with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic watching the live version, so I look forward to seeing it again so I can pick up some of those extra tips that I might have missed as well. But Sean also has some sheets, some worksheets available also that make it a little bit easier to operate. He'll show that on the screen, but also that will be available to share through our email at the end of the presentation as well. So Sean, I'm going to give you control here and let you take it away.
All right, so let me go ahead and bring this up to speed here.
And for those just joining us, it was this is Monday, August 21st. It was our Eclipse Day. So I think Sean got a good glimpse of it from his vantage point. Unfortunately, here in Oakland, we didn't really have that. So
Did beautiful Redwood City. The clouds parted just in time.
magical. Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately, San Francisco, I don't think was that blessed with that. Well, Sean, looks like we see your red smiley face. So it looks like you're good to go.
Right on. So once again, Jared, thank you so much for having us. We really do appreciate being able to work with the Better Business Bureau. You guys do some amazing work, and we're always pleased to be a part of big things. So what we're going to be talking about here are some tools that are really useful for all walks of people who use Excel. This isn't for necessarily beginners in as much as it is for advanced users or experts. This is something that everybody can really rally behind. So we'll be talking about some really useful tools that are designed to get Excel out of the way in as many different ways as possible. One of the big ways that we're going to do that is with some nifty keyboard shortcuts. So we'll be sharing those throughout today's series here. To Jared's point just made a little bit earlier, I do have a really great one-sheeter here that we're going to provide to download either through the YouTube channel or through the email channels. We'll figure that out in post. But these keyboard shortcuts, a lot of which we'll be speaking to here, are really, really useful. You can take this, you can print it, run it to Kinko's. If they still have Kinko's, laminate it, hang it up in your cubicle. It's great. So really, keep an eye out for this here. It'll be a really useful tool beyond this session. Additionally, we'll be talking about some tools that are going to be really useful for you just operating, managing inside of Excel, and doing things in the quickest way possible. So starting at the very beginning here, I've got this data that I'd like to work with. I've got some made-up ice cream sales, and what I'd like to do is clean up this data, clean up this report a little bit. I know there are many of us out there that get the same data day after day, or week after week, or month after month, and we have to do the same thing to it all the time. In this example, for instance, I need to add dollar signs. Having the column that says sales is great, But the problem is that the minute I get down here to rows 25 through whatever, I have no idea what these numbers mean anymore. So we need some annotation that's going to help us to clean this data up and help me to understand what I'm actually looking at. What do these numbers represent? Now, Excel 101, if I want to add currency to this particular cell, I can select it, right-click, and go to Format Cells. But I can also, here in the Home tab, find the number command group, where I've got a couple of different tools available, including, hey look, a $sign. So with that one cell selected, I'll go ahead and click the dollar. Boom. Except something happened. This may have happened to you historically in Excel before. This simply indicates that the number is too big for the column it's in. In order to fix this, all we have to do is make the column just a little bit wider. So that's exactly what I'm going to do here. Now the problem is that I only did it for just that one number, so that can be particularly problematic here. Whoop. Grand Central Station coming by. So what I'd like to do here...
I think Sean warned me earlier about the train, which is good. You know, it's real life. It's real life right there.
That's right. The eclipse didn't stop the world. So what I'd like to do from here is I'd like to apply the same style of formatting to all these other cells below. But boy, there are a lot of cells. I could click and drag. Instead, what I'd like to do is have Excel select all that data for me so that I can format it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on this top cell, and this time I'm going to tell Excel from where I am to go to the very bottom of our data. What we're going to do is we're going to use a combination of two really useful keyboard shortcuts. We're going to talk about the Control key and the Shift key. So the Shift key, as many people know, if you hold the Shift key and tap, let's say, the down arrow a couple of times, you'll notice it selects a bunch of cells. And likewise, if I hold the Shift key and tap the left key or the right key, it selects a few cells. But that means that I'd have to tap the down arrow key 163 times. So the Shift key alone is not going to save me. So maybe the Control key will. I'll hold the Control key, and I'll tap the down arrow key one time from the top of this column. And check it out. It actually took me to the very bottom of the data set. So I didn't have to know how far down to go. All I had to do was tell Excel, go to the bottom. So I'll hold the Control key again, tap the up arrow key this time, and check it out. It took me to the very top of the data set. Holding the Control key and tapping left or right allows me to zip to the very disparate areas, the edges of this particular data set. So that Control keyboard shortcut tool is designed to say from where I am, go to the edge, go until something changes. Now be very careful with the Control keyboard shortcut, because if you're already on the edge, like in this instance I'm on the right edge, if I hold the Control key and tap the right arrow key again, well, there was nothing to stop it. There was no end, so it went to the absolute end, in this case column XFD. If this ever happens to you, know that you can always get back to the very beginning of Excel, cell A1, using the keyboard shortcut Control Home. Of course, home meaning the home button on your keypad. So I'll go ahead and do just that. Control Home, and I'm back to square one. Now Control was great. It let me get to the bottom of a data set, but it didn't select anything. So between both Shift and Control, I've got a keyboard shortcut that lets me select a bunch of cells, but it only lets me do it one cell at a time. And I've got another keyboard shortcut that takes me to the furthest edge of the data set. Do you see where we're going here? We're going to combine them. I'm going to hold Shift and Control, starting from the beginning of where I'd like to select, and I'm going to tap the down arrow key one time. Notice it went all the way to the bottom of the data set, selecting the whole way through. Now, all I have to do is click that same $sign that I did before, and there it is. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. I needed to select a bunch of cells, I did it, and I formatted them. I'd like to go ahead and show you one more way that we can format these numbers. I'm going to go ahead and do the units. Now, while it's easy for me to look at these numbers now and say, yeah, that's $10,000, I look at 7,328, and I have no idea what the context for that is. So, 7,328 what? Well, it's units. but I can't see units. It's all the way at the top of the data set. So how can I contextualize that number the same way I did with currency? How about by putting the word units at the end of that number? So I'm going to do the exact same thing I did before. Starting at the top of that data set, I'm going to hold Shift and Control, tap the down arrow key one time. This time, I'm not going to go up here to my number formatting tools, although I could. Instead, I'm going to right-click on any of those selected cells and go to Format Cells. With Format Cells selected, of course, this is where you would have gone for general formatting, number, currency, date, time, what have you. I'm going to go to Custom. Right now, the number just says the number, but I'd like to add words to the end of that without impacting the fact that it's a number. So I'm going to click at the end of that 0, add a space, and type the word units. Notice it caught the word U, but not the rest of it. So I'm going to go ahead and surround the word units with quotes in order to say, take all of this. Notice that I surround the word units with quotes, and suddenly the whole thing appears. Sounds like the 4 o'clock to New York is on its way. I'll go ahead and click OK on this. And once again, I'll make the column a little bit bigger. Boom. So now, a little bit farther down, it's so much easier to contextualize what this number represents. There we go. Had mercy on your ears for a brief moment there. So those are two really great ways for us to format data in a way that allows us to quickly select it and, in some instances, create custom formatting that doesn't normally exist inside of Excel. Through the way, we also talked about some really neat keyboard shortcuts. You may have known about Shift by itself, but now you've had the opportunity to see what it looks like to combine Control and Shift and use any of the directional arrow keys, down, up, left, or right. From here, we're going to go ahead and shift the conversation over into formatting multiple worksheets simultaneously. Taking a look at sales Q1 through Q2 through Q3, you can see here I get the same data every quarter. What I may decide that I need to do is I may need to make the same change to all 3 worksheets simultaneously. Let's start with something simple. I'd like to go ahead and say this is a title. It should look like a title. The problem is, what does a title look like? Is it bigger? Different color? Different font? Any number of these different answers kind of falls into the same problem, which is it starts to get into a question about design. Now, I can't speak for those of you watching this video, but I can tell you I'm no graphic designer. I can appreciate things that look good, and I know what a title should look like. I just don't necessarily want to be the one to make the decisions on getting it to that point. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand off control to Excel. By selecting cell A1 in the Home tab, off to the right-hand side, I'm looking for the Styles group, but more importantly, the Cell Styles tool. Now, depending on the version of Excel you're using, it may not be a button that says Cell Styles, but it will be in this exact same spot. It'll just more likely look like a box like that, surrounded in red, but up here. So keep an eye on that. If you don't see the Cell Styles button, look for the big box that says things like good, bad, and neutral. So with cell A1 selected, I'm going to click on Cell Styles, and I'm going to go ahead and say this is a title, and it should look like one. I'll click on Title here. And just like that, the cell I had selected now takes on that cell's formatting. So cell styles are essentially these miniature cell templates that allow you to say this is something, make it look like that something. Let's try that again with Q1 2017. I'll have that cell selected, click on Cell Styles, and I'll give this one the heading 2 cell style. And check it out. One last time, I'll go ahead and customize the headers for this particular data set. While I could click and drag from A4 to J4, what I can also do is use that newfound keyboard shortcut we talked about earlier. Hold Shift and Control, tap the right arrow key just one time, notice it selected the entire column. I'll click on Cell Styles once again and choose heading 3 this time. It doesn't have to be any harder than that. We had a need, we wanted to do it quickly, we were able to get to that point. Not only that, but we didn't have to make any design decisions at all. And I think we can all agree that while this may not necessarily fall in line with your design aesthetic or what have you, we can absolutely make the case for good enough. Can someone tell that this is a title? Yeah. Can somebody tell that this is a column header? Absolutely. That's worth something. The problem is that all that time and effort that I just invested, which admittedly wasn't much, but it could have been, Q2 and Q3's worksheets don't have those changes applied, which means that I'm going to have to do this 2 more times. If you're getting the same report daily or weekly, that's going to get really old really quick if you need to make the same change across all of those different worksheets. Instead, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm actually going to undo those changes that I just made, and I'm going to build up to making a change across all 3 worksheets simultaneously by selecting all of them in advance. So right now I've got Q1 selected. I've cleared all the changes that I made just a moment ago. And I'm going to go ahead and select Q2 and Q3 by holding the Shift key. With luck, you're starting to see the Shift key has a lot of really useful features that are available that aren't necessarily as public as they should be. So I'm going to go ahead and hold the Shift key, and I'll click Q2 and Q3. With all 3 worksheets selected, now I'm going to do the exact same thing I did before. Choose A1, give it the title cell style, again that's here in the Home tab. Click A2, Cell Styles, Heading 2, select A4, Shift Control, tap the right arrow key 1 time, Heading 3, and now, check it out. All those changes I made in the Q1 worksheet, but now I'm going to jump into the Q2 worksheet and look. The exact same changes that I made in Q1 have been applied to Q2 and to Q3. So this means that I only have to do that one bit of cleanup, that one bit of effort that was going to apply across all worksheets 1 time. Because you have better things to do. At least, I hope you think you do. Because you do. So throughout all of this, we've been spending time talking about cleaning up data, making the data look and read and feel just a little bit better with the least amount of effort needed. What we're going to do from here is we're going to talk about one more really, really fantastic tool that's going to help you clean up data, and it's perhaps the one that we should have started with, turning data into a table. Now, when we talk about working in Excel, there's this misconception that everything in Excel is a table, but that couldn't be farther from the truth. I get why you would think that, though. I mean, it looks like what a table would look like in, say, Microsoft Word. It's got the grids. But it isn't itself a table. A table is a specialized property within Excel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and clear the formatting for this particular header here. There we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this data into a table. I'm going to place my cursor anywhere inside the data set. It doesn't really matter where, as long as the data is inside the data set. From here, I'm going to jump into the Insert tab. And I'll find the Table button. Now what I didn't say is select all the data. As long as the data is intact, meaning there's no completely blank row or completely blank column, this will work. Even if it's missing some pockets of data, this isn't such a big deal. All we're worried about is fully blank rows and fully blank columns. So I'm going to place my cursor anywhere inside the data set, and from the Insert tab, I'm going to click Table. Now it may be tough to see on the video, so I'm going to make sure I point it out here. It has automatically selected everything for me, from A4 to J309. In fact, if I were to scroll down to the bottom of the data set here, you'll notice that's exactly where it stopped, is right where the data stopped. All I have to do is A, make sure that it's selected all the data, and B, confirm that my data does in fact have headers. And I'll click OK. And look at that. A bunch of stuff just happened. But one of the biggest things that I'd like to go ahead and take this opportunity to point out is there's a tab up here that was not there before. This is a contextual tool tab called Table Tools Design. It's a tab that only reveals itself when you're in, you guessed it, a table. So when I'm not in the table, like now, no Table Tools tab. When I click back inside the table, Table Tools. No Table Tools, Table Tools. The reason I point out Table Tools is this is what really makes being in a table so valuable. You might have noticed that the table took on a new design, these alternating rows of color. But it also just kind of picked a color for us. You might not be in love with blue. You can choose your own table style color by going to the Table Tools Design tab and clicking the drop-down arrow. Notice we got a couple of other colors available. Simply by hovering over the design, you can get a preview of what this table is going to look like. Or maybe you don't like design at all, in which case you can choose the unbuttered toast style in the top left-hand corner. So I'll go ahead and choose a style like orange, go Giants, and I'll give it a click. Pretty good. There's so much more that we can speak to with regards to tables, but that said, we are coming up against the bleeding edge of our session's time. I do encourage you to look into more about tables, and, of course, one more train to cap us off here. But that said, some fantastic things we've spoken to here today. We've talked about this idea of keyboard shortcuts, being able to navigate and select data quickly. We also talked about being able to work with multiple worksheets simultaneously. And finally, we talked about this idea of using tables to format our data in a way that looks, reads, and feels just a little bit better. As an added bonus here, one thing I'm going to go ahead and show you is as I scroll to the bottom of the data set, remember that problem we were running into earlier where we didn't know why these numbers were or what those numbers referenced? Well, check it out. Right now, I'm potentially a few hundred rows down, and yet, crazy enough, the headers are still right there. When you turn data into a table, the headers follow you, no matter how far down into the table you go. For those of you that have struggled with freeze panes before, never struggle with it again. Just turn the data into a table. I could go all day, but Jared, it's at this point here that I'll go ahead and take this opportunity to hand it back off to you.
Oh, no, that was fantastic and a great presentation. Even with the trains going on, too, it gave it a little bit of a period.
I'm like a busker. I'm outside one of the subway stations. Some of them play drums. I give Excel keyboard shortcuts.
No, it was great. It was fantastic. No, we really do appreciate that, and thank you again for that great presentation. I mean, some simple tools that you can use right now that are just some quick little snippets for your worksheets. Because I know, I have a worksheet that's like a huge worksheet right now that I'm still trying to figure out myself. So any little bit of tips like that's very helpful for me too. So thank you, Sean.
Well, just so you know, the email on the slide here is for you as well, Jared, if you have questions.
Oh, perfect. And then, I will, because I'll be bugging Sean a lot about this. But if you want to bug him too, so you can do sean.bugler@learnit.com. And then my email also is jwise@bbbemail.org. Feel free to email us. I know that Sean's going to share that one-sheeter if you're interested, so feel free to email him or myself for that. So thank you, Sean. And then for this course and others, a more extended course, Learnit has some great programs for your office staff that would be helpful. The last webinar we gave was on organizing your online calendar, and Kara with Learnit gave a great presentation on how to manage your online Outlook and Google calendars. So go ahead and look at that webinar on our YouTube page as well. Review that. That'll help you give some good organizational tips. But like I said, for an extended course on Excel or organizing your calendar or many others, check out learnit.com. There's their phone number as well, 855-838-5028. And then their social media as well. So you can get some information as well. And they're here in San Francisco. So Sean, thank you so much for doing this today. I really do appreciate your time and a great, simple presentation. You gave a good layout there, so really appreciate that. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for having me, Jared. It was an absolute pleasure.
Awesome. And then if you have any questions based on this, email either one of us. and I will be. If you email me, I'll probably email Sean. So if you want to make it a quicker, direct line of communication, you can just do Sean.Bugler.
See, this class is all about efficiency. Just cut out the middle person.
or you can bug them on LinkedIn there too. So go for it, and then or email me. But we'll be happy to answer your questions. So feel free to pass it along, and then stay tuned for our next series. So we'll be working with Learn It on other training tools for our accredited businesses as well. So tune in next time. And Sean, again, thank you so much today, and I hope you all have a fantastic day no matter what day you're viewing this. So have a great day, everyone. Sean, thank you again.